Okay, we will start. We want to welcome everyone today. We're glad that you joined us and to take your time. We know your time is valuable, and so we do appreciate you being here with us. I'm Bill Cruzy. I am with the Spirituality Initiative. I'm also a faith leader in the community. I will be the moderator today of the four panelists that we have with us. We welcome everyone today to the interactive dialogue, which we've titled Spiritual Ideation, Mental Wellness. This webinar is one of many virtual events that is a part of the San Mateo County BHRS Mental Health Month, Hope for Change, which is this year's theme, Hope for Change. Our panel will share the role of their faith and/or spiritual practices in supporting resilience, wellness, and recovery. And they will share how nurturing their spiritual needs leads to a whole person wellness, and how their faith communities, and spiritual practices support their wellness. But before I introduce the panelists and we get started with the questions, there are a few housekeeping items that Sylvia Tang will tell us about. Sylvia is our tech support today, and we appreciate that. You don't know how much I appreciate you being our tech support, and who is a staff member of the Office of Diversity and Equity, which is a part of San Mateo County Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. Sylvia.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you to all the organizers and speakers and all the attendants. I'm going to share my screen really briefly. Let's see here. Can you all, let me make it in presentation mode. Okay, so you should be seeing a slide set. If you don't see it, feel free to let me know. It says, welcome to the Spiritual Ideation Mental Wellness event. This event is being recorded. And this event, as I mentioned, this event is being recorded. We just wanted to let you know, if you don't want to be recorded, you're welcome to turn off your camera and change your name, anything you want for your privacy. Otherwise, we'll be recording the event, which may include the attendees, but definitely the speakers. And for the media notice, I'll read through this media notice here. It says, you are approaching an event area where filming and photography are being done. Your entrance into the area constitutes your full consent to being filmed and photographed by the County of San Mateo. The County of San Mateo reserves the right to use any photography or film taken in the event area without providing compensation to you. Excuse my dogs if you can hear them in the background. Such use by county may include, but is not limited to, postings to social media or websites and or use in promotional or informational materials in any medium. You agree to release and discharge the County of San Mateo, its agents, representatives, assigns, licensees from all claims, demands, and liabilities arising out of or in connection with the use of your likeness. Do not enter this event area if you do not wish to be subject to the foregoing. Alternatively, if you wish to participate, attend the event, but do not wish to have your photograph used in accordance with the above notice, please contact the event organizer. You can contact me in the chat. County will make best effort to comply with your wish not to be photographed. We will be not only using photos, but we'll have video. Again, if you don't want to be recorded, you can turn off your cameras, or you can, and you can change your name. Otherwise, I will move on to the next slide. Oops, let's see here. All right, so some Zoom housekeeping. Participants will be asked to stay muted until the Q&A segment of this event. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. If you have any questions about how to do that, feel free to reach me out in the chat. And there will be specific times held for those joining by phone to make comments. And please use the chat window for any questions or comments you may have, and I'll be monitoring that. And please understand there may be some unexpected technical difficulties. We'll do our best to keep it smooth, but we appreciate your understanding. So we have a demographic survey and evaluation link that we would love your help filling out. So right now you're welcome to already take the demographic survey, and that helps us understand who we reached and who we'd like to reach in the future. And on the right is the evaluation, which will show again at the end of the presentation. And if you fill this out, you'll have a chance to win raffle prizes. We have stress balls, and we also have a swag bag that will be out for a raffle. And I think that's the last slide, so I'll pass it on to Bill.
Thank you, Sylvia. You always do a great job, and we really, again, appreciate the work that you've done to keep this whole thing. Sylvia is really kind of the mainstay. She and Brenda have really done some amazing things to keep this whole month going. So I just want to give a shout out to them for the work that they've done for this month. So I will introduce John. You have your hand up, I see. Is there something you wanted to say?
Yes, I just wanted to explain the reason for the title, Spiritual Ideation. It was my idea because I am a suicide survivor and have experienced suicidal ideation, which means to think seriously from your heart about something. So it is important to express that we are talking from our hearts about our spiritual lives and practices. And I just wanted to like flip the script from a negative suicidal ideation to a positive spiritual ideation. So in case you were confused about the title, that was the point. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So I will now introduce the four panelists. The first person I will introduce is Abbas Molu. Abbas will be speaking from his faith base, which is Islamic. Abbas Molu is an active humanitarian. He is the founder of Help Aid Africa, a nonprofit dedicated to improving the lives of the less fortunate in Africa. Abbas also serves on the boards of Community Initiatives and Literacy International. Community Initiatives acts as a thought partner and provides professional services to nonprofit startups, established initiatives, networks, and collaborations. The Literacy International builds better infrastructures for schools in India. Abbas is also an advisor for Salam Online, an online Sunday school for Muslim kids around the world. The second panelist is Jean Perry. Jean lives in Millbrae and is a graduate of the Lived Experience Academy. She has the lived experience of family members living with mental health challenges. Although she is now retired, she made a difference as a nurse practitioner, serving vulnerable women and as a clinical researcher. She volunteers as an organist with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Jean leads NAMI family-to-family education groups, and she's currently serving as commissioner on the MHSARC and co-chair of the MHSA steering committee. The MHSARC stands for, if I can remember what she told me, Mental Health Substance Abuse Recovery Commission. The third panelist is Wesley Mukayama. Wesley Kazu Mukayama, LCSW, is a retired clinical social worker. Since 2009, he has served as a volunteer lay Buddhist chaplain at the Santa Clara County Jail System. He states that he has a better connection with inmates as a chaplain than as he did as a professional clinician. Prior, he worked as a clinical social worker for a county nonprofit in crisis intervention and the Veterans Health and Hospice Medical Center for over 30 years. His county was Santa Clara County. Wes served in the Peace Corps beginning in the 1960s as a teacher in Tanzania, East Africa, a training associate director in Western Samoa in the early 80s. He became director of UIKAI, Japanese American Community Senior Service in San Jose, and served there for 6 years before he retired in 2009. Wes has been active in several local and state community commissions. He's currently on the steering committee of the California Mental Health Spirituality Initiative and the Santa Clara County Behavioral Health Board. Wes is a grandfather of 4 and loves to ride his bicycle with them on Fridays. John Butler is our 4th panelist. John is a lived experience academy graduated living in Menlo Park. He is a recipient of the 2020 George Caloris Consumer Hall of Fame Award. He is the co-creator of San Mateo County's only graphic novel on mental health and recovery and hope. John is a fan of cats, comic books, and Pete's coffee. So you get a little bit of a human picture of each of our people as well. So I just want to say, don't hesitate to put questions in the chat as you think about them. What we're going to do is we have 2 questions that we're asking our panelists to respond to. So we probably won't get to answering the questions till near the end, or you can raise your hand. And again, as Sylvia said, she will be monitoring all of this. And so just be patient and we will get to your questions. So each person shall have approximately 4 minutes to speak. We will have each panelist respond to the first question and then we'll go to the second questions. And I just remind the panelists that if you go longer, you'll hear a little bell that I've got here. So just try to keep it to the 4 minutes. So question 1, and we're going to go in this order. Jean will go first, Wes will go second, John third, and Abbas will be 4th. Question 1 is, how does your faith and practice of your faith support your wellness? And as a part of your answer, please share 1 or 2 rituals, practices that you do that helps you to attain and aid in your wellness. So how does your faith and practice of your faith support your wellness? Jean? Yeah, now you're unmuted. Perfect.
There we go. Sorry. So I hope each of us will feel or hear or learn something during this event today that we can use in supporting our growth and wellness. Like Thomas Edison, who had the opportunity to learn 10,000 things that did not work before he succeeded in making a light bulb. Each of us has the capacity to recognize truth, things that work, things that resonate with us. We share the desire to look for and find the things that will lead us towards wellness. In every sense of the word, my words today are I statements. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We lived with heavenly parents before our lives began here at birth. This divine heritage allows us to continue to grow and progress now and in another life after this one, when we die. Jesus Christ is an essential and instrumental in this forever plan of happiness, growth, and progress. Not only are we pre-wired to return to our heavenly home, but God is totally rooting for us. We are unique, both in our spirit's experiences before birth and our physical body's strengths and frailties. I find it comforting to believe the body malfunctions, including brain disorders, will be left behind when we die. After we finish this mortal life, we will all receive a body that can't get sick or break down. Great news for all of us. Two of the many ways my faith in Jesus Christ and the practice of my faith support my wellness are prayer and honoring sacred places. My practice of prayer or praying are conversations, communicating with a caring God, expressing gratitude, being open to inspiration from God. Modern scripture gives us a model for seeking the Lord through prayer. And let me just share a couple verses here. You have supposed that I would give it unto you when you took no thought, save it was to ask me. But behold, I say unto you that you must study it out in your mind. Then you must ask me if it be right. And if it is right, I will cause that your bosom shall burn within you. Therefore, you shall feel that it is right. But if it be not right, you shall have no such feelings, but you shall have a stupor of thought that shall cause you to forget the thing which is wrong. Therefore, it's one model of how we can bring things before our God in prayer. So prayer for me involves regularly reconciling my values and actions and making course corrections as needed. Prayer is a source of peace, wisdom, affirmation of my worth. It gives me confidence in God's love for me. Practices such as meditation and study and pondering the words of God through his prophets are part of my prayer practice. Some of the results of prayer for me can be assurance that I'm good enough, increased awareness of others' needs, that I can be useful and fulfilling, sorting through solutions to unsolvable challenges, awareness of God's love for me, peace and comfort in situations that are not peaceful or comfortable. Prayer can be a reset, a fresh start. Prayer can be an opportunity for me to feel I am not alone. So the second practice I want to share is honoring the three most sacred places or locations. And these are my body, my home, and the temple. Our temples are throughout the world, and you may be aware of the one in Oakland up on the hill. They're places of worship, service, education, inspiration. Carving out the time to worship in the temple has tremendous value to me, to my mind and body and spirit. It helps me keep at top of mind the perspective of the eternities, particularly when I'm feeling unable to prosper in the face of grief, loss, suffering, both personally and globally. Our homes are also sacred places. Our homes can be likewise places of peace, refuge, learning, inspiration, if we act on the intention to make them that way. My body, the last sacred place, in fact, our children sing a song that says, "My body is a temple." My body is kind of on loan. And I take the stewardship and responsibility for my body's care seriously. I do not separate my mind from my body, from my spirit. They're inseparable, and the practices that support my wellness support all three. As in Israel in ancient times, we have a health law that helps guide us in the care of our bodies, and the promises or blessings associated with that health law are spiritual, intellectual, and physical. In eternal terms, there are no mind, body, spirit boundaries. So I'm going to close there and look forward to hearing from the other panelists. And if you have further questions, there'll be time for that. Thank you.
Yeah, there'll be time at the end. Again, just go ahead and start putting your questions into chat. Someone requested the questions and I sent them to Sylvia. I just now sent them to Sylvia. So if you want the copy of the questions, if you ask Sylvia, I think she can send them to you. So our second panelist is Wes Mukayama. Wes?
Good morning. I am a Buddhist from the Jodo Shinshu sect, Mahayana Pure Land tradition, founded by Shinran Shonin in the 13th century in Japan. It is the largest sect in Japan, and there are 60 temples in the continental US and about 18 in the Bay Area and Central California. I'm proud to say that I recently heard U.S. Senator Mazie Hirono declare she is a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist, and she is working in passing legislation on the anti-hate violence legislation against Asian Americans, African Americans, Latin American, Native Americans, and the LGBTQ population. Proud to her to have stated that she's a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist. Uh, Jodo Shinshu is often called the no practice religion. It is one of thousands of sects in the Buddhist tradition. And our practice is all we do is say the Nembutsu, which is say, we put our hands together and say Namo Amida Butsu. And with sincerity, gratitude, and aspiration to go into the Pure Land. We do not believe in a higher power, but the Amida Buddha is a symbol of absolute truth. And it means, when I say Namo Amida Butsu, it means I put my faith or in trust or take refuge in the immeasurable wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha. In other words, we can receive Buddhahood by just saying Namo Amida Butsu. However, every morning I go to the Buddhist altar in the morning, ring the altar bell, and bow and say the Nembutsu with mindfulness and meditate breathing in and out 20 times. In addition, I try to be mindful when I eat, shower, wake up in the morning, brush my teeth, not all the time, when trying to be mindful, but mindfulness is the center of our practice, being in the moment, understanding the past is a past that can't be changed. It does influence us, and the future we cannot predict. So the only thing we can control is in the moment and being mindful. We at the temple chant every Sunday and do the loving meditation. May all beings be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they all live in peace and harmony. We do not pray. We do not do petitionary prayer, but we focus on our lives now and in the past, and we pay gratitude to that, to the Buddha for that. These practices help to center me and focus on others, knowing that I am imperfect and cannot attain enlightenment, but can receive it from the Buddha by just saying the Nembutsu. So basically, we do not have a deity per se, because the Buddha was a man and he lived and he told us never to believe in anyone, but believe in yourself and how it connects to the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, and also have faith in your Sangha, or your, as Christians call it, your congregation, and to try and to receive, because we are human beings. We cannot. Only one Buddha that I know received enlightenment. So but we understand that we all have a dark side to us, and to try to be perfect in an imperfect world, and and a world that is always changing, impermanence, where there's really no self, and where yet we all are all connected to all sentient beings. Therefore, um, we cannot just look on ourselves, but we need to understand ourselves and how we are connected to others. Because even a blade of grass can become a Buddha. We all have Buddha nature. And therefore, it helps to center me and helps to keep me focused if I can, and I don't think I can always do that, is focus on being mindful and focus on the here and now. Thank you. That's it for me.
You finished? Are you finished, Wes? I'll
Yeah.
give you 30 seconds more if you need it, but okay, thank you. People are starting to put questions in the chat box. We will deal with those questions at the end. Remember that what we're here for. We are here to talk about spiritual ideation and what is it that our practices are that helps us to keep our focus, our attention, and our recovery. Our title again is Spiritual Ideation, Mental Wellness. And so the idea is sharing the role of our faith and or spiritual practices in supporting resilience, wellness, and recovery. So hopefully the questions will deal with that, but we will get to the questions. So the third person is John. Are you with us, John?
Yes, thank you, Bill. Just a little background on where I'm coming from. I was raised Catholic, and I was a good Catholic boy, and I do have some affiliation with the church today. Um, in the 1970s, when I was in high school, I had the experience of what was called the Catholic Charismatic Renewal, which is not really well known today or spoken of, but it was a Catholics gathered in and experienced what's talked about in the Acts of the Apostles as the gifts of the Spirit, such as speaking in tongues. It was a Catholic Pentecostal experience. So we speaking in tongues is kind of a controversial issue, but it is a form of prayer to me, which is actually something I've done more in a group experience than on my own. It's really something you share together. The Catholic Charismatic experience opened my mind to going to a Pentecostal church, which I did. I was invited by a relative. And my experiences in these two faiths led me to believe that there's a sense that what we call the body of Christ in the scriptures should be a body, should have unity, despite all the diversity of faiths that we have in the Christian religion. I'm more of a, I guess, more of a hybrid Christian, because today I do go to Catholic church and I do go to Menlo Church, for example, in Menlo Park. It's important to me, and I have visited Jean's community in Oakland at the temple too. That was a great experience. So it's important to me that we be united, that we be accepting, that we put aside our theological differences. My prayer life is not just a form of petition, and my prayer life is sort of a delayed dialogue with God in my thinking. I have personal times throughout the day where I stay in dialogue with God. The scriptures talk about pray without ceasing. And I believe that that means just as we have conversations in our inner thoughts, we have those conversations with God and express whatever we need to express. You know, God is not afraid of anything we have to say. God is totally open to accepting us. And I feel at peace with that. And the delayed dialogue is in the sense that I believe I hear answers from my prayer through other people, through the mental health community, through spending time with the comfort of my cats, through books I read, and I believe that God does speak in those ways. And prayer to me is it's not so much a formal thing, although I practice the Catholic faith to a degree. I rarely say formal prayers. I just speak from my heart like I'm speaking right now. And I think that's all that God I think God appreciates that from me and from all of us. And I hope you will learn today some things that help you to be enlightened about our various faiths and some things that perhaps encourage you. I find that my prayer is a comfort for my mental health struggles, and my time with my cats is also a comfort. And those are some of my tools to survive my challenges and today live in recovery for the last 5 years to a significant degree. And I am grateful for that. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to read the question again, just because I think we've had a couple of late people join us. Abbas, before you go. So the question is, right here, I have my apologies. Is that what is it that we do in our faith that helps us to keep our focus? How does your faith and practice of your faith support your wellness? And as a part of the answer, please share one or two rituals or practices that you do that helps you to attain and aid in your wellness. Abbas, and thank you. You're muted, Abbas.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you, Bill, and peace be upon all of you who have attended today in the name of God, the most kind and the most merciful. Um, it would be great if, to the extent possible, if we could see our participants. So if you can turn on your videos for just a few minutes so we can get a face view of you. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it'd be good to see faces. This way, if I see you at the grocery store, I can say, hey, you attended that presentation that I was at. Yeah, thank you. So to kind of reiterate what the question is again, which is how does my faith and practice of my faith support my wellness? And I come from the Islamic faith. I'm a Muslim. I was born a Muslim. And, to answer that question, what I would say is, there are things in my faith as a Muslim that I do every day. There are things that I do on a weekly basis. There are things that I do on a monthly basis. There are things that I do on an annual basis. And then there are things that I do on a lifetime basis. And these are the things that kind of help me and the people that my family and the people that I know in our community maintain a well-being, a mental well-being, a spiritual well-being, as well as a physical well-being. And so I will take the few minutes that I have to elaborate on on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual, and lifetime basis. So for most of you, you might be aware that as Muslims, we pray 5 times a day. It doesn't have to be 5 specific times, but there are 5 prayers that you do. The first prayer is before sunrise in the morning, and it's a very short prayer. And I'll go over what we say in the prayer as well. The second set of prayers is in the afternoon, like right when the sun is midway. So the way to look at when it's time for prayer is you keep a stick in the sun and make sure there's no shadow on that stick, so you know that the sun is right overhead. That's your midday prayers. And then you have the mid-afternoon prayers, which normally people say them right around midday because people are working. It's not easy. If I'm working, I can't take a lunch break and then take another break at 4 p.m. So I'm going to pray and then take another break. So typically you combine the afternoon prayers, and then you have the evening prayers that's right after sunset, right a few minutes after sunset, and then there's the night prayers. So what we normally do is we combine the evening prayer and the night prayer. And so think about it. I have a busy work day, and I start off my day with prayer. And then at midday, when I take my lunch break, I say my afternoon prayers. And then right after the end of my day, after sunset, I say my evening prayers. So this kind of gives me a balance of connecting myself with God. And I know that at any given time, anywhere around the world, there are my fellow brothers and sisters Muslims that are praying, because the prayer times are different at different times of the world. So constantly there are people praying. I pray for other people and other people pray for me. And that's how part of our well-being is, right? So, and again, the prayers are obligatory, but not everybody is a staunch believer that does that. So there are other prayers people can do on a weekly basis. So for example, every Friday there's a congregational prayer. Friday is the Muslim holiday, just like you have Sunday for the Catholic Christians, Friday is for the Muslims. So you will see on Friday at the mosque, there's people gathered together. That's the Friday prayer that they gather for. And then there are things that you do on a monthly basis, right? At the beginning of the lunar calendar, when the new moon comes out, you pray for the safety and well-being of you and your family at the beginning of the lunar month. And then there are things that you do annually. So for example, we just got finished with 1 month of fasting, right? And so in fasting, you don't eat or drink from sun up to sundown. And not only, it's not just a fast of food and water, but it's a fast of being well in the sense that uh, deterring all negative from yourself. You don't want to say bad things. You don't want to look at things that are not good for you. You don't want to hear things that are not good for you. You don't want to go to places that are not good for you. You don't want to use your hands that are in a bad way. You don't want to use your tongue to insult other people and make them feel bad. Not that people do it, but you have to have special consciousness and mindfulness that you are avoiding yourself from these things. And then on a lifetime basis, there is the once in a lifetime pilgrimage where you go to Mecca and go and do the rituals over there. So all these are rituals at different times of the day, month, year, in a lifetime. And then on a daily basis, it's always good to recite the scriptures. They are in Arabic, and different people recite them in different tunes. And if I have a chance, I'll play something for you so you get an audio experience of what this, what is the recitation of the Quran sound like, right? And I want to, before I end and share with you that recording, I will tell you that all prayers, the prayers that I was referencing in the beginning, which is the 5 daily prayers, they all have the same scriptures that everybody reads, and it has to be read in Arabic. Now, you need to understand what you're reading as well. And so I'll read to you the translation of what we read in the 5 daily prayers. And this is just part of what we read. It's not the entire prayer. But the prayer starts off typically by, in the name of God, the most beneficent, the merciful. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, master of the day of resurrection. You alone we worship, and from you alone we ask for help. Keep us on the right path, the path of those whom you have bestowed your bounties, and not of those who are inflicted with your wrath or who have gone astray. This is just the prayer for the Muslim that goes on in every daily prayers, and it's recited in Arabic. And for my closing, I want to share with our listeners, our viewers, if that's okay, just a hearing of what is it that we kind of listen to, if that makes sense. If that's okay. Is it okay for me to share that?
Sorry, Abbas. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we've had now the second. Go ahead. Oh, you're sharing. Gotcha.
أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر.
Thank you. That was it. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Abbas. Are you finished with your response?
Yes, I'm finished. I'm trying to get
Okay,
this.
okay.
Here,
You can take the share down when you have a chance.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for this first. And I see that Sylvia, you put the question into the chat. Thank you for doing that. So you can do that with the second question if you would. And the second question is, how does your spirituality influence your wellness in a broader sense? Such as, how does the sense of community add to your wellness and thus sustain your recovery and wellness? How does this manifest itself in everyday life? So in other words, we want for you to speak about how this manifests this in what it is that you do on a daily basis and in the community that you find yourself in, whatever that community is. And Patrick, I see that your hand is up and we'll talk after, but let us finish this if we could.
That's the question I was going to answer. That's the answer.
So
that.
Could we ask the people who are not speaking to mute, please?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd like to briefly quote one of our living apostles and prophets, kind of describing the feeling of members of our church in their kind of community settings. So we mourn, rejoice, and are there for each other. When we fall short of our ideals and are rushed, unaware, judgmental, or prejudiced, we seek each other's forgiveness and do better. So that is very idealistic and lofty, and I sincerely aspire to be a member of not just my faith community, but my world community. And so some of the ways that manifests itself is starting each day with thoughts and prayers of who in my world needs me to provide something for them. And I think the result of communally doing that results in just wonderful, wonderful, spontaneous kinds of service that is absolutely customized to what an individual's needs are. Within our faith, we also have a more formal kind of assigned ministering program where we actually are assigned to, the women are assigned to 2 or 3 other women in the congregation to just kind of keep an eye out for them and keep them at top of mind all the time, just so no one falls through the cracks. But I think where this is more obviously manifest in my life is kind of my worldview in terms of my seeing needs in my community and wanting to volunteer and be of service. So I am on the Millbrae Garden Committee, and I teach emergency preparedness, and I volunteer with a number of the behavioral health and recovery services committees, and I'm serving as a commissioner right now on the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Recovery Commission. I think my faith manifests in a willingness to see need and see where I uniquely might be able to provide something to others in my community that perhaps they couldn't receive from someone else. Another way it's manifested is just incredible gratitude for the support that I have received through the many challenges I've encountered and my family has. You know, there's just no way to quantify or even qualitatively describe the kinds of support I received when I lost my husband to suicide. And I think back of my experience of living in a congregation in San Francisco during the 80s and 90s when people were dying of HIV disease right and left. There was no treatment. There was, you know, and many of the individuals who were challenged by that were also already separated from their families. Their families had rejected them based on their sexual orientation, and then a double whammy rejection based on their HIV infection. And the way that we were able to come together and become the families for those individuals and provide the round-the-clock care that they needed at end of life was just an amazing, amazing experience for me, as well as for my comrades. So another way in which I wanted to respond to this question is how music is a spiritual practice in my life, that I am just incredibly lifted, not just by performing music or accompanying the congregation, but in enjoying it with other people. It lifts my spirit in a way that nothing else does, and it's not typically something that I do alone. And so the opportunity to share music with people, whether we're listening together or whether I'm providing it, is a practice that really contributes to my wellness and other people's wellness. During the pandemic, we recently started meeting in person, partially. We still have our services on YouTube, but due to the COVID precautions, no one can sing, and so it is so unusual to be playing the music and having a room full of people yearning to sing. So I really look forward to the time when it will be safe for people to be able to sing and just raise the roof with their joyful noise. So I think the third piece I'd like to say is a piece of who I view as my community are actually the people who have gone on before me, the people that made these crazy sacrifices to start life anew outside of Europe and to just go for it. And I just really enjoy reading journals and feeling connected with those who have gone before me. I feel like they are my community too. And I'm really grateful for that. And my kind of eternal perspective allows me to understand that I will actually know them and be with them again in the future. And I'm really grateful for that. So thank you.
Thanks, Jean. Thank you very much. Our second respondent is Wes. You got your mute on, Wes.
Oh, are we responding to the second question? Is that what it is? I wasn't sure. I thought there was a question.
Yes. Do you want me to read it again, Wes?
No, I can, I have it in front of me, so
Okay.
I'm gonna do this extemporaneously. Uh,
Good.
My past is that I was born during the war, World War II, and my brothers were sent to Japan, and they were they returned in 1948. And during the time of the war, there was a lot of discrimination against Japanese Americans. And my wife was born in a concentration camp in Aurora, Arkansas, and as a child, I repeatedly was harassed by the Italian kids in our neighborhood. And I remember when a group of gang members came over to when I was about 4 or 5 to our neighborhood. Um, they said, "What is this Jap doing around here?" And they said, the guy who stood up for me said, "Leave him alone. He can't help it. He was born that way." And there were many times that on Pearl Harbor Day, I was harassed at school and with the neighborhood kids, and then when my brothers came back from Japan, the Italian kids would and Irish and others would chase them home, and so we would get out our rakes and sticks to fight them, and we were able to get them get them away. But it was a constant battle as a kid for me, and I was always considered other rather than Negro or white. And I remember that I could not be hired because I was not white when I was about 16 years old, because newspaper says white only. And so I experienced a lot of racial discrimination during my growing up years. And so I think the Peace Corps helped me understand that the American way is not the only way. You know, there are, you look, experience life around the world. It was very helpful for me. And at that time, I was more going away from Christianity, and uh, I went to Japan, and it was during the Vietnam War. Kennedy had been assassinated. Robert Kennedy had been assassinated. And that was Martin Luther King was assassinated. That was a very difficult time. And I continued to oppose the Vietnam War because, one, it was a racial war, and two, it was a war that was, to me, unjust. And therefore, another experience is some guy came up to me. I went to American Friends and wanted to see if I could, after Peace Corps, could not be drafted. And they wanted me to be a conscientious objector. But I did not believe in the supreme being, so I couldn't go that way. And the only thing I could do was go to Canada or something else, or stay away. And when the draft board was calling me, sent it to my address at home, my mother sent it to me and told her where I was. So I was able to go back to my doctor for the federal government, and he said I barely escaped. I had hay fever and flat feet, and therefore I was not draftable because of health. And I felt kind of relieved, but not really authentic about that. But And at one point, I wanted to protest the war, and this one guy from the American Friends, he was Australian. He said, "Why don't we go out and protest by burning ourselves, like they did in Vietnam, like the one monk did in Vietnam?" Well, needless to say, I'm not here because I didn't show up to meet him the next day. And I realized that, this way, that way was not the way. And so I studied, while I was in Japan, I turned towards Zen Buddhism and studied Buddhism. And I just felt very, very depressed during that time and didn't know what to do. But I think Buddhism helped me quite a bit, understanding a different way of believing and a different way of understanding myself and my identity. Before, dating was a difficult time for me. There was nobody that would date me because I was of a person of color. So that was during my formative years. And I was lucky enough to meet my wife, who was on vacation as she was traveling through Japan. And immediately, about a month later, we talked during the stay in a month, and she and I proposed to her. So that was my saving factor. I really appreciate the Peace Corps for being able to do that. And so I finally converted to Buddhism after we went home during that time, and we had kids and moved to California from Chicago. That's where it was.
So
That was-
Wes, we need to
Okay,
wind your
so
answer down. Can you go for
so
another 30 seconds?
what it does is I do a lot of volunteer work, as was stated in my um, bio. My greatest is I'm doing two things. I do family caregivers groups, and I do Buddhist counseling in the jail. And last week I was able to determine someone was suicidal, and I referred to them right away. They were seen, and I'm so glad we have all these support systems. My health, I have that. I live in gratitude. That's what I want to say, and humility. And
Thank you.
I thank Buddha for what I do.
Thank you, Wes. Yeah, Wes does a lot of work in the Santa Clara County Jail, and maybe a little bit later, Wes, you can talk a little bit about that. But right now, we need to move on to our next respondent. So, John, can you respond to the question again? How does your spirituality, your wellness,
I've got it right in front of me.
influence your wellness in a broad?
Yeah.
Okay, go right ahead.
I just want to make a comment first that if I talk about Christianity, maybe some of you have a stereotypical view of what a Christian is. And Christian, the word comes from, it was actually an insult in ancient times where the Christians were called Christians in the city of Antioch, which means a slave of Christ. So that is not too much of a reality for a lot of believers today. So when I say I'm a hybrid Christian, like I say, it means I'm open to faiths that I do not necessarily attend their services, but I believe that the body of Christ should be in unity and put aside its theological differences.
John, you're muted now.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. My experiences of church communities, this might surprise you, but I do not feel as much of a spiritual connection in the church communities I have been a part of. Like I say, I've gone to Catholic Menlo Church, St. Raymond's Menlo Church, and New Community Church here in Menlo Park. And I have not connected. I have certain reasons that I believe that I cannot connect, but haven't felt as comfortable and haven't felt as accepted. But on the other side of that, my spiritual community is more my mental health community. Um, Both Jean and Bill and I are part of the Spirituality Initiative, which I hope you'll look into. The health equity initiatives in our San Mateo County mental health community are a great resource to connect to the various cultures in San Mateo County. And I have felt a connection. I stay constantly calling every week different peers to stay connected and to support my wellness by just sharing from our hearts. That's the key thing to me, is sharing from your heart, being real, being genuine, being authentic. And some formal settings, like I say, I don't feel that exists. And I appreciate my mental health community, our mental health community, because there's sort of a thing about church, is that people Christians we refer to ourselves as sinners in a sense, and we are redeemed in a sense. But people don't talk about their sins. They're not open about their lives, in my experience in the churches I've attended. And my mental health community is, genuinely open and genuinely out there and sharing personal stories. People like that are here, like Lee Harrison, Doris, and Ellen, and May, and Sylvia. We all are a strong community, and I'm very grateful to God for that healing that I find, my wellness that I find through the mental health community. And that does sustain my recovery and wellness, and that has brought me a long ways from suicidal experiences to 30 years of major depressive disorder, through misery and alcoholism. And I'm so grateful that that is my spiritual connection, is my mental health community. And I hope you'll extend yourself and look into the opportunities that are available and the people that are open to welcoming you in our mental health community. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Abbas?
Yes, thank you, John. That was good explanation of what you said, and there are certain things that I can echo along. But again, the question is, how does my spirituality influence my wellness in a broader sense? So how does the sense of community add to my wellness that can sustain my recovery and wellness? And how does it manifest itself in my daily life? So, for example, the perfect example that I can give for this is, as I mentioned in my previous response, was that we just finished a month of fasting, right? Now, how does that help me? When I fast and I don't eat or drink water for the whole day and it's really hot outside, it's number one, it makes me think about something other than my daily problems, my mental problems that I have. It takes my mind away from that, because now I'm trying to curtail my hunger to the extent that it's possible. And when I do that, I think about, personally, I think about, well, let's think about how many people just in America, around the world, don't have enough food on the table to eat. I, on the other hand, have food, but I choose not to eat so that I can experience hunger with my fellow human beings around the world. That by itself brings a different perspective to me on everything, right? And then you enforce the other things that are part of your fasting, and things start putting together. But another thing that I think that is very highly encouraged, in fact, to a certain extent, it's obligatory. I mean, Islam is a religion that's very holistic, and there's rules for everything, right? There's principles for everything, and there's foundations, and there's rules on your life, basically, on how you should live your life, right? So, for example, prayers is obligatory. It's one of the critical things, pillars of Islam, right? That if you're accepting this religion, then you have to say your prayers. Another one is fasting. That's also, it's mandatory if you're healthy. If you're sick, that's something else. But another thing that is very highly encouraged and almost obligatory to a certain extent, that's repeatedly quoted in the scriptures, is giving charity and helping the people that are less fortunate around you and around the world. That was what motivated and inspired me to start my charity to help people around the world, because I feel, and from my experience, when you start giving without having any expectations back from the people that you give, God opens up doors for you in ways that you cannot imagine. This is my true experience. And I recently, it's funny because I recently received a book from a networking group that I joined, and it's called A Go Giver, because typically you hear about go getters, but you never hear about go givers. And these are people that give without having any expectations in return. Now, charity doesn't always have to be in the form of financial assistance. A smile could be a charity. You can lighten up your day by just smiling at somebody. Volunteering at so many I mean, we live in California. This is the capital of nonprofits in the whole world, I would say. Forget United States. And there are so many nonprofits out here that could use a hand, whether it's volunteering in their services or in their soup kitchens or in their cooking, what have you, right? Whatever it is, that's your charity that you can give. You don't always have to give money for charity. And you can always give your time, your smile, whatever it is that you can afford to give, right? But the key thing is to learn, because typically our minds are set in such a way, if I get and being a go-giver, let's give without. Another point that I want to bring is the sense of community. In my earlier discussion, I had mentioned that there are certain prayers that you do in congregation. Even sometimes when you break your fast, it's recommended that you break your fast with other people who are fasting. But the congregation prayers attracts everybody to the mosque, and kind of mandates everybody to say their prayers together with the leader, right? And so what that does is you all come together, you meet people from the same faith and saying the same prayers, and you lend a hand to people that need a hand, right? Not everybody comes out and begs their hand as to what assistance that they need. Some people don't ask for help. It's maybe embarrassing for them, or it's not appropriate for them. But if you're friends with somebody and you build that relationship, then it's easier for them to reach out to you and ask for help. And that might be the life that you saved that day without knowing it. And so, with that, I think I kind of would like to conclude my discussion on these issues. Again, I think to wrap it up, how does my religion help me in maintaining spirituality and balance in my life is by following the principles laid down in my religion, which include your daily prayers, your fasting annually, and your giving of charity to people you and around the world. Thank you for giving me the chance of sharing this.
Thank you, Abbas. Thank you very much. There's a lot of richness in the responses of the four panelists. So, Sylvia, I know you've been monitoring the chat. Is there a question for either one of the panelists or all four at this time? We're not hearing you, Sylvia, if you're talking.
Is that better?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great. So there were a couple questions. I need to scroll up to find it, but one was from Alyssa. And Alyssa, did you want to share it verbally, or I can read your question as well? Okay, so I'll read it. The question was, we've explored the Mormon, Buddhist, Catholic, non-denominational Christian, and Islam religions, correct? These religions tend to have temples and churches to learn more, worship, pray, and build community. Does anyone on the panel have suggestions for people who would like to explore religion or spirituality but cannot attend a church or a temple service during COVID, or just not ready to use an in-person resources? So Alyssa mentioned that John addressed the question that she had, but I wanted to open it up to the panel as well.
Right. So did the panelists hear the question? Okay, good. So Jean, you're shaking your head. Do you want to respond to Alyssa first, and then Abbas, if you have something to add, we'd appreciate that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Our church actually affiliates with an organization called Peninsula Multi-Faith Coalition, which involves quite a few more faiths than are represented here today. And almost all of them have been having virtual services. For a while, my congregation only had virtual services. Now they are having concurrent in-person with social distancing and precautions and other services. So I think through Peninsula Multi-Faith Coalition, you could shop and be able to contact to find out how you would be able to attend to attend virtually, and there's pretty elaborate what's the word? There have been lots and lots of mechanisms made available to continue connecting. The women's group in my congregation meets every couple of weeks, and the youth groups actually have started meeting in person, but just this week. But most of the congregations went to great lengths to provide, for instance, for the holidays, for Easter and Christmas, to provide services that were pre-recorded or in other ways to make that accessible to people who probably shouldn't safely be congregating yet. So Peninsula Multi-Faith Coalition is a place to know about locally on the peninsula, which faith groups you have to shop between.
Okay, thank you, Jean. John, I know your hand is up. And I see Wes does, but I'd ask Abbas to do a follow-up to what Jean said, or to follow up on the question. Abbas, are you available to respond to what the question was?
Yes. In terms of resources, I posted it on the chat forum. The good website that has a very comprehensive information on Islam and resources, including mental health resources, is www.al-islam.org. And that's there's many Islamic websites, but this is a very reliable one, which accurate information that I can highly recommend for anybody who wants to learn more about the different things that you're interested in.
Okay, thank you, Abbas. John, I think you had your hand up next, and then Wes will take you after John. Thank you, John.
Yeah, I just want to mention real quick, I neglected to mention Brenda Nunez, who's here, who's a co-chair of the Diversity and Equity Council, and that's also a really beautiful health equity initiative. But part of that is both Bill and Jean and I are part of the Spirituality Initiative, which is through San Mateo County. And it is a good space to experience different faiths. And we will probably be meeting in person, I hope soon. And it is meeting online right now. It's someone could put a link possibly to it through the chat, how to get there. I guess the BHRS website is the way to get there. Is that right, Bill?
Yes. Maybe Sylvia, if you can't do it, I can do it in a minute, but
Okay. Yeah, I
Well-
just want to recommend that as a good source of community. And it also has the factor of um, churches are becoming more aware of the needs of people with mental health challenges, but they are still not up to speed, I think. Whereas the spirituality initiative is definitely that combination of spirituality and helping you with your mental health challenges. Thank you.
okay. Wes, did you want to respond?
Yes, I'm part of the Islamic Network Group which makes presentations of at least 5 religions and more if they're available, including Islamic, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, and Native American presentations that go out to present their different faiths, and they will also have information in regards to our tradition, the Buddhist tradition. You know, there are many Buddhists. There's Tibetan Buddhists. There's uh, uh, several other religions from Vietnam, and for our sect, you go to BCA, Buddhist Churches of America, and uh, go to that website. And in Palo Alto, where I attend, they have a council of churches, I believe, that's there. So I think there are many ways you can see, and most of them are now virtual sessions. So you can listen to sessions. You can when you go to BCA or Buddhist Churches of America, you can see recorded sessions of our faith as well.
Thank you, Wes. I just put in, I know the ING group you're speaking of, and so I just put that website into the chat, and also the chat for the HEI initiatives that John was just speaking about is also in the chat, and Abbas has put some things in there. I think there's another question, Sylvia. Could you read it to us, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I could read it. The question is so this was earlier from Alyssa, and May will get to your question next. But Alyssa asked earlier when Abbas was speaking, beautiful, are all the prayers done in song in Islamic faith?
So Abbas, that's a question for you.
Please repeat the question.
Yeah, happy to repeat it. So Alyssa asked, are all prayers done in song in Islamic faith?
Yes and no. So the obligatory prayers are done in Arabic. They have to be recited in Arabic. So you have to learn how to read, not necessarily write, but how to read Arabic, although you might not understand what you're saying until you read the meaning of that. So it is a process where you have to say it in Arabic, not necessarily in a tune or a song format, but in Arabic language. Now, the other part of it is the scriptures are all for the highest impact of having that on your soul. You have to recite it in Arabic through the Archangel Gabriel to Prophet Muhammad, which were then transcribed in a book form, which is called the Quran. However, outside of that, then there are supplications. Supplications are different from scriptures. Supplications are when you are asking God for your specific needs, and these are not scriptures. They're tied to the scriptures in a way because there are certain words that come from the scriptures. So you use those scriptural words and tie into your supplications to reach directly to that superpower, which we call God, Allah, right? And so those are typically are recited on the weekly things that we talked about in on the song format after the prayers, and it's done in congregation as well. And there's so many YouTube channels. If you want specifically, you can privately reach out to me and I can guide you as to where are the resources that you can just tap in. You don't have to be a community member or anything. You can just tap in and see what goes on in these supplications on a weekly basis, and what can you learn from it, right? I'm always curious to see that. So I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Abbas. Yes. John, I see that your hand is raised. Did you want to add something to this, or because it was a specific question for about the Muslim religion? So
Yeah, yes. Well, for one thing, I just want to mention that we have in the chat the demographic survey and the evaluation survey, which will help us in knowing how we're meeting the needs of our communities. If you could click on those links and fill those out, that would help. But I just want to mention, if she's willing to chat a little bit, Doris Lockery is studying Arabic and is of the Islam faith, and I thought maybe you know, her point of view might be, a couple comments might be helpful if you're willing to talk, Doris.
Thank you, John. Actually, yes, I very much agree. Several things. The one thing I want to say is the charity I believe in very much. And also I believe in very much, I believe in a charity. I believe in a prayer really does ground you. And it really gives you this sense of being, and just knowing that there are other Muslims always around the world that you share something with, is this sense of brotherhood and sisterhood that you share. And something about that just does something to you. And knowing that I have a mental health challenge, it helps know that I have others around me, and that Allah or God is just really helping me, and that I'm not alone. And thank you very much for mentioning that, because it really helped me explain to other people what I feel. So thank you very much for saying that. Thank you, John. And thank you so much for putting those, explaining it. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Doris. Thank you.
So, Patrick, I know your hand is raised, but we're going to take one more question first, and then we'll see if you have a question or a statement, and then we have to close. We've only got about 7 minutes left. There's one more question. I may ask a question about guardian angels. So, yes. Any of you speak about guardian angels from your religious, spiritual perspective? Go ahead, Abbas.
I can go briefly. Where there's no, in Islam, there's not guardian angels per se, but what we have is we have angels that record our deeds, which is our good deeds and our bad deeds, right? Now, we all want to strive to have those good angels record the good deeds, and those are our guardian angels that kind of help us. And the ones that record the bad deeds, they help us stay away from evil, because they don't want to be busy writing bad deeds for us. We want these guys to be busy on the right side, to say, look, these guys are doing good things. They're saying their prayers, they're giving charity. We don't want the bad guys to keep saying, oh, these guys are just keep doing things that are not good for themselves nor for humanity. So this kind of, that's the concept of the guardian angels, if that helps explain.
Wes, do you have guardian angels in Buddhism?
Well, it's very similar to what Abbas is saying, is that we have a gray wolf and a white wolf, and they're always with us, you know. And so we try to find the middle path, because we have to accept that we have a gray wolf, an evil or, you know, bad side of us, or a dark side of us, and we also have, you know, gratitude on the other side. So accepting both and finding the middle way and bringing them together as one. And I do believe that we have the same thing in common with Islam, is all is one. That's how we we see it. We cannot eliminate that gray wolf. It's always there within us.
Thank you, Wes. Jean, did you want to add to that from your perspective?
Sure. You know, I think we have references even in the Old Testament about I can't remember who was going to battle, and the prophet said that those are who are with you are more than those who are against you, in terms of there were armies of unseen people supporting this group in this battle, because the battle was for Zion, for the people of God. And I think you will hear accounts all through history, both in modern times and through the scriptures, of people being aided and supported by individuals who were not living in mortal bodies. Whether there is I'm sorry, that probably cut out my sound because somebody tried to call me on the iPad. So whether there's so there isn't anything doctrinal about we're assigned to this number of guardian angels and this is what their role is, and whatever, that we don't have anything like that, but we are aware that people who have passed on into the next life in some forms are able to visit and have influence.
And John, did you have anything you wanted to?
I'd rather give time to Patrick's question because he's raised his hand like 3 times during the course of this.
Okay. And Patrick?
Yes, well, I don't have anything to say right now because right now I feel like I was left at the back of the bus, so I'm just going to leave the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, sorry you feel that way.
Yep.
Okay, so are there any other questions then at this point? It's just, we've got about 2 minutes before we leave. I think it was mentioned that there is a follow-up survey. We hope you will do. Sylvia put that into the chat. And so that is something we hope that everyone will take a minute to do. Sylvia, is there anything else that I'm leaving out here?
Well, yeah, listen, I heard from Patrick on the chat, what about white people in terms of the anti-hate? And I don't know, that's what's going on. There's a battle going in the House about that, and I think McCarthy made a statement about what about the Black Lives Matter violence. So I I would say if there's any proof of violence against whites, that would be a hate crime too. So I just want to respond to that.
Okay, thanks, Wes. So we really appreciate everyone being here and joining us today. We hope that you have received something that might be helpful to you personally and in your community work that you do. I know everybody here has been involved in many different kinds of ways, and so thank you all for being here. And we say goodbye, and may you all be blessed and have a good rest of the day. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thanks, Bill and Jean.
Thanks, Wes. Thanks. Yeah, thanks to the panelists. Sorry, didn't mention that specifically, but I hope you know that we are grateful, Abbas, for you, Wes, Jean, and John. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of you who've attended. We appreciate the support very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia, for putting this together, and Bill for hosting it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great job, everyone.